Marcus got a raise. He's 34, works in software in Calgary, and after 3 years of strong performance reviews, his salary jumped from $85,000 to $105,000 a year. That's a $20,000 increase. He went out for dinner that night, nice place, ordered the steak. 3 months later, he checked his savings account. It looked exactly the same as it did before the raise. Not because he bought anything crazy, not because he went on vacation or upgraded his car. He just lived, slightly better than before. A slightly nicer apartment, groceries from a slightly better store, said yes a few more times when friends suggested going out. Nothing dramatic, nothing he could point to and say, that's where the money went, and yet, gone. If you felt this, you're not imagining it, and you're not bad with money. What's happening to Marcus is happening to hundreds of thousands of Canadians right now. People who are objectively earning more than any generation before them and somehow ending each month with less to show for it than their parents did at the same age on half the salary. This video is about why, not the surface answer, the real one. Let's start with what the numbers actually say, because the headline looks promising. Canadian nominal wages grew at roughly 5% year over year between 2022 and 2024. That's the highest sustained wage growth this country has seen in about 3 decades. If you read that sentence in isolation, it sounds like Canadians are winning. It sounds like the labor market is finally delivering. But there's a word buried in that sentence that changes everything: nominal. Nominal means the dollar figure on your paycheck. It doesn't account for what those dollars can actually buy. When economists adjust for inflation, when they measure real wages, the picture collapses. For much of that same period, real wage growth in Canada was near zero. In some quarters, it went negative, meaning the average Canadian worker got a raise on paper and a pay cut in reality. This is called the pay raise illusion, and it's not a conspiracy, it's just math that most people never see, because the number on your offer letter goes up and the number on your bank statement goes down slowly enough that you never feel the moment it happens. You got a raise, you're just not richer. Now, most people, when they hear the word inflation, picture a general, even rise in prices. Everything gets a little more expensive, you adjust, you manage. That's not what happened in Canada. What happened was selective. Targeted. The things that went up weren't optional, they were the floor of a normal life. Rent in major Canadian cities increased between 20 and 30% over a 2-year window. Not gradually, not in a way that gave people time to adjust their budgets. A lease renewal letter arrived, and the number at the bottom was simply different. In Toronto, the average rent for a 1-bedroom unit crossed $2,500 a month. In Vancouver, higher. In Calgary, which used to be the affordable alternative, the vacancy rate fell off a cliff and rents followed. Groceries peaked at 11.4% annual inflation in 2023. That's not the price of a luxury item going up. That's the weekly bill for feeding your family. A household that was spending $900 a month on groceries into one was spending over $1,000 for the same cart 2 years later. Same items, different total. Car insurance in Ontario, mandatory, not optional, has increased consistently for years, with some drivers seeing double-digit increases on renewal without a single claim on their record. And childcare. The federal government announced a $10 a day program. It exists. It's real. But the wait lists in most major cities are measured in years, not months. The family that needed a spot last September is still waiting. In the meantime, they're paying $1,800, $2,200, sometimes more per child per month. That's not a discretionary expense. That's the cost of being able to go to work. Here's what this means in practice. The CPI, Canada's official inflation measure, tracks a broad basket of goods and services. It includes electronics, clothing, furniture, things that have gotten cheaper. That dilutes the number. It makes the headline figure look manageable. But the inflation that actually hits a working Canadian family isn't spread across that basket. It's concentrated in the things you cannot cut. Shelter, food, insurance. The things where there is no cheaper substitute, no way to shop around, no option to simply wait for a better deal. Your salary went up 5%, your rent went up 20%, your groceries went up 11%, your insurance went up 8%. The math does not work, and the headline number was never going to tell you that. So far, this sounds like a cost of living story. But it goes deeper than that, because even when the raises are real, even when a Canadian genuinely earns more, there are 2 forces waiting to absorb that increase before it ever reaches a savings account. The first is the tax system. The second is something harder to fight because it doesn't feel like a threat, it feels like a reward. Canada runs on a marginal tax rate structure. What that means practically is that your raise doesn't get taxed at your old rate. The new dollars, the ones you were counting on, get taxed at a higher rate than everything you earned before them. A person moving from 85,000 to 105,000 in Ontario doesn't keep 20,000 extra. After federal and provincial tax, they might keep 11 or 12. The raise that felt like 20,000 was always closer to half that. This isn't hidden, it's in the tax code, but most people don't do this math when they get the offer. They hear the gross number and plan their life around it. Then comes the second force. 3 months after the raise, Marcus isn't spending more on anything dramatic, but he upgraded his apartment, slightly better building, slightly better neighborhood. The lease is 300 more a month. He started going to a gym, not an expensive one, but 60 a month. He added a meal kit delivery service. 80 every 2 weeks. His phone plan, which he'd been meaning to upgrade for 2 years, finally got upgraded. Another 25 a month. None of these decisions felt like lifestyle creep. Each one felt earned, reasonable. I'm making more now, this is fine. That accumulation, 300, 60, 80, 50, is 490 a month. Almost $6,000 a year, gone before it ever had a chance to compound. And here's the part that makes this so difficult to fight. It's not random, it's not a lack of discipline. The human brain has a mechanism called hedonic adaptation. Within roughly 90 days of acquiring something new, a nicer apartment, a better car, a streaming subscription, that thing stops feeling new. It becomes the baseline, the new normal, and the brain begins scanning for the next upgrade. This mechanism exists in all humans, but the modern consumer economy was built specifically to exploit it. Subscription services are engineered for frictionless continuity. They don't ask you to redecide each month. Lease cycles are timed to moments when disposable income feels highest. Social environments upgrade in lockstep with earnings, so the reference group that surrounds you is always slightly ahead of wherever you are. You are not weak for falling into this. You are a person living inside a system that was designed, with considerable sophistication, to keep you spending at exactly the rate you earn. The goal of that system is not your financial security. The goal is your continued participation. Here's what a lot of Canadians will say at this point. But I am saving, I have a TFSA, I put something into my RRSP last year, I'm not just spending everything. And they're right, they're not spending everything, but there's a version of saving that feels responsible while quietly failing. And most people won't realize it until it's too late to course correct. Canada's personal savings rate, the percentage of after-tax income that households actually set aside, averaged somewhere between 2 and 4% in the years before COVID. In the 1980s, it was closer to 20. That collapse didn't happen because Canadians became irresponsible. It happened because the math of keeping up, rent, groceries, insurance, childcare, started consuming a larger and larger share of every paycheck, leaving less margin for everything else. COVID briefly reversed this. Lockdowns forced savings, people couldn't spend, the rate jumped, and then, as restrictions lifted, it fell again. Back toward the floor. Now do this calculation. If your rent increased by $400 a month over the past 2 years and you're saving $200 a month, you are not saving. You are losing ground at $200 a month. The savings number in your account is going up. Your net position, what you actually have relative to what basic life now costs, is going down. This is the savings treadmill. You're running, the number moves, but the finish line is moving faster. The people who feel this most acutely are renters. A homeowner who bought in 2018 locked in a cost. Their mortgage payment is the same as it was. Their shelter cost, in dollar terms, did not inflate. So as their income grew, the gap between what they earn and what they spend on housing, the margin where wealth is built, actually widened. A renter in the same city, same income, same discipline, watch that gap close. Then close further, then sometimes disappear entirely. Not because they made bad decisions, because the cost of their most basic expense kept rising and they had no mechanism to stop it. Same country, same economy, completely different financial trajectories determined almost entirely by one decision made years ago or one opportunity that was available to one person and not the other. Let's zoom out, because this isn't just a personal finance problem, it's a structural one, and it has a destination. The generation currently between 30 and 50, the people most squeezed by everything described in this video, will begin retiring in roughly 15 to 25 years. And the retirement infrastructure they're relying on looks different from what their parents had. Defined benefit pensions, the kind that guarantees a fixed monthly payment for life regardless of market conditions, have largely disappeared from the private sector. They still exist in parts of the public sector. But for the majority of working Canadians, retirement income will depend on three things: CPP, whatever they've managed to accumulate personally, and if they own a home, the equity in it. CPP, at maximum, currently pays just over $1,300 a month. That number is set to grow slightly as the enhanced CPP contributions phase in over the coming years. But it was never designed to be someone's full retirement income. It was designed to supplement, which means the weight falls on personal savings, on the TFSA and RRSP that Canadians are supposed to be maxing every year, on the discipline of setting aside enough, consistently enough, over a long enough period that compound interest can do the heavy lifting. But if the savings rate is sitting at 3%, if real wage growth has been near zero for an extended stretch, if rent and groceries and insurance have already absorbed the gains that were supposed to fund retirement, then what exactly is there to compound? This question doesn't have a comfortable answer. The data points toward a retirement landscape where a significant portion of middle-income Canadians arrive at 65 with CPP, a small amount of personal savings, and either a paid-off home that represents the majority of their net worth, or nothing close to that if they were renters their entire working lives. The homeowner cashes out equity, downsizes, has something to work with. The renter faces CPP plus whatever was left over after a lifetime of rising costs. In many cases, that will not be enough to maintain the standard of living they had while working. Nobody is announcing this. No policy document leads with it. But the arithmetic is not hidden, it's just slow enough that it doesn't feel urgent until it is. So where does that leave us? Marcus still works in Calgary. He's still making $105,000 a year. He's not irresponsible. He's not financially illiterate. He just lives in a system where wages rise in one column and costs rise faster in another, where the tax structure quietly clips every raise before it lands, where the entire consumer architecture around him is calibrated to absorb whatever is left. He is not uniquely failing. He is the median outcome of a set of conditions that nobody designed to hurt him specifically, but that weren't designed to help him either. Understanding this doesn't fix it. Knowing the name of the mechanism doesn't stop the mechanism. The savings treadmill keeps running whether you can see it or not. Hedonic adaptation doesn't pause because you've read about it. And the rent bill arrives on the same date it always does, but there is one thing that changes when you see it clearly. You stop blaming yourself for the wrong problem. You stop believing that one more raise, one more promotion, one more income milestone will finally be the number that makes it all feel stable. Because the number is never the problem. The gap between what comes in and what the system pulls out, that's the problem. And that gap doesn't close by earning more. It closes by understanding, with specificity and without illusion, where every dollar actually goes. Most people never do that work. They earn more, they spend more, they feel about the same, and they assume they're missing something obvious, some discipline or strategy that other people have figured out. They're not missing a strategy. They're missing a clear picture of the game they're actually playing. Now you have one.
If this story changed the way you see money, subscribe for more deep story about finance, power, and the system behind it.